brothers grew up and had their families and, lived their lives. The thing that impresses me is the extent to which you all work to stay in relationship with each other, even though you were all over, the country. What do you think motivated you all to go to such effort to stay so connected?
I don't know whether you heard the old parable about the bundle of sticks. Uh, that was this man was showing how a bundle of sticks, if they all stuck together, you could not break them. But individually, you could easily snap any one of them. So another one of the things that our dad kind of, you know, stressed about as a group, nobody can really hurt you guys. So no matter, you're going to go your separate ways, and you're going to have different ways of doing things. You'll be in different places, but the main thing is that you all stay as a group, and that way there's strength in being a group. So that's what we kind of did. No matter if any one of the group needed something or was in distress in any way, then we as a group just got together and took care of the problem. That's one of the things that he kind of insisted that we do.
That was just, of course, my memory is so us in Shreveport and you, mainly me remembering you in Laredo, Texas area when we were growing up. And then Uncle Otis in Houston, and then Uncle Harvey in California, and Uncle Lewis in Philadelphia. Um, and just the extent to which I felt like, my dad, but you all as well, us driving to California to, be and spend time with our family there, and driving to Laredo and driving to Houston,
Mm-hmm.
and you all coming to Shreveport, and seeming willing to share it, like it wasn't just us coming to California. Uncle Harvey and years would drive to Shreveport, or you'd come to
Mm-hmm.
Shreveport, and we'd all meet up in Houston. And I just think that is, I personally feel like that had such an impact on me, and why I feel like I try so hard to stay connected. Plus, I just like to travel.
Mm-hmm.
But do you feel like that really did make a difference in how you all maintain your relationship with each other and your families, your
Mm.
individual families' relationships with each other?
Yes.
What's so tell me a brother story. I know y'all got along pretty good, but I also knew y'all pretty different. Y'all had your stuff. So
Brother
what was a
stories.
good thing? What's a really good brother story where you all were, really came together? And then do you have a brother story where you all kind of, didn't do so good?
Well, I can't say they didn't do good. Now, the real brother story was Brother Lewis and Harvey. No matter when or where we got together, they had to establish their peck order in order to get anything done. Uh, Lewis wanted to be the boss because he was oldest. Harvey wanted to be the boss because he figured he was the smartest. And so they were constantly at each other's throat, but they were inseparable. During the I believe it was the March on Washington, going back from D.C. to Philadelphia. They got into a spat about who's going to drive, and they ended up having to get out of get out of the car. It's just one of those things. And they would always, one of those things about who was going to be the boss of the trip. Otis and I were pretty well laid back. We never really cared. As long as we got where we were going, as long as the beer was cold, we didn't care. But that was the real brother story, and it was constant. It was every time we got together.
Really?
Hmm.
Really? So what was my dad's personality like?
You know, I could not really pinpoint his personality. He and I got along real good because in 1943, when after I come out from Southern University back to Winsboro, I moved over to Shreveport, and I was staying with your dad and Aunt Lubella. So your dad and I got along real good. We never fussed about anything. Except I was the big brother and the wise one, and he went along with it because I guess I was the one who had the job. So that was it. Otis was he was just one of the bunch.
I had a sense that Dad really looked up to you all. I mean, he being the younger one, I think, like I said to you the other day, I always felt like, during that time he was apart from you all.
Mm-hmm.
That he really that had an impact on him, and he really looked up to all of you and admired you and really wanted to be with
Mm-hmm.
you. I don't know that he ever. I don't know how he came across in terms of wanting to be in charge or the most outspoken or that kind of thing. He just seemed to really look up to you all a lot.
Oh yeah, but he never was one of those that was wanted to be the boss of anything. But like I said, he was one of the bunch. We got along good.
Is there, when you look back over you all's life as a family, I'm thinking of your brothers all together. Was there anything that really was, I don't want to say tragic, but was really difficult for you all? I don't know if it's in your early life when you're young or, what is something that happened that you feel like was really difficult? I don't know, the loss of your mom. We have a grandmother lived till she's what, 90?
94, 95, something like that.
So you had your mom a really long time. Is there anything that happened though that was really difficult for the family?
No, just normal things that happen. Some of it were rather tragic, but we always coped with them. It was nothing anyone had to bear on their own. We all kind of stuck together. We kept in touch about what was going on with each other and helped each other whenever we needed to. Of course, everybody had their own personalities and own way of doing things.
So you just mentioned about the drive back from the March on Washington. Did you all go? Who all went?
Bertha went. I didn't go.
Ah.
So it was Bertha, Rosa, and Harvey and Lewis.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know Aunt Rosa went.
I'm pretty, I'm pretty sure she did.
Isn't that something? Did you remember them talking about it and what it was
Oh
like
yeah,
for them?
Bertha got a charge out of it because she was always aware of this thing between Lewis and Harvey, about how well they got along and how well they liked each other, even though they were always fussing about something.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to figure out who had the most wisdom about anything, because Harvey was the guy that had he knew everything about everything. He because Harvey had I guess one of the most well-rounded educations in the entire family, because he after he went to California to Vallejo. He went to Vallejo Junior College for some kind of courses, and from that he was taking law courses over at San Francisco State, and he got into something else, and he had a myriad of jobs because he the first thing he got into was a prison warden, a prison corrections officer. And he was working in Vacaville, California, that's 30 miles east side of Vallejo. And from there, he transferred with a promotion down to Long Beach, California. Got another promotion and came up to Soledad State Prison. He worked there for a long time. He got out of that and went into, became an Internal Revenue Service agent.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that, and he was one of the top revenue agents in the area down between here and Vallejo, out in the country out there, seizing property. And they did not like you if you from that area. Was those staunch conservatives,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't want no black revenue service agent down here anyway. So the Harvey supervisor told them, says, I don't care whether you like black revenue agents or not, you got one coming your way, so you better get ready. And Harvey was down there seizing these out in the sticks restaurants and stuff, Put a lock on the door. No, you don't go back in there. You can't get nothing. You out of there.
Wow.
Yeah, he did that for years. Finally, he got transferred to office work. Not office work. He was, supervisor. But he had
Wow.
and up towards Clear Lake, which is another ultra conservative area. And he liked to run into those people who would tell him, you ain't gonna let you come into this place. You don't even belong up here with us. I don't care whether you like me or not. The lock goes on that door and nothing goes out of here. Everything has to be inventory and blah, blah, blah. Made them toe the line.
And that's what I'm talking about, that I remember in this family. Unapologetic about who you are and what you have to do, and
Right.
and you just go about doing your job, and not compromising based on what you believe to be people's assumptions. That's beautiful. Right. Well, what's interesting is And then he went into real estate too. Didn't he do real estate?
Yeah, he did real estate.
And then he was
Bail
community
bondsman.
civil service.
Yeah.
You know, did some. Was he? Did he have elected office? Did he? Was he ever like city council or anything like that? I
No.
can't remember.
No,
Okay.
I don't think he was. I don't think he really wanted to get involved in some of the inter-office politics and stuff like that.
Wow. It's interesting that he, given his competition with Uncle Lewis, that they were both in corrections for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Different states, of course, but the same area. Wow. That is just amazing. Well, you know, you got any final kind of, I don't know, thoughts, reflections to these, you know, this, I think the H's have just an amazing legacy. And we still got a lot of good things going on with, you know, these young H's. What would you tell them?
I have no
What are
idea.
the lessons I mean, just in terms of living their lives?
Well, some of the things that Dad told us and taught us, because it always has worked pretty good for me. That is the other thing about the bunch of sticks.
Sticking together.
And the other part is your own independence. Like when they told me in the Navy I had to become a cook or a steward, I said I wouldn't do it. And they said, well, you'll be a laborer. I said, well, this really hits me in the paper, in the pocketbook, because you could go down the pier, you know, the Navy station where there's a lot of people around, and you would see the cooks and stewards with gold braid from their wrists up to their shoulder, but they had no authority over anybody else except another cook or steward. Because I remember one of the ships I was on, I don't know where it was going, from Hawaii to Guam or where it was, but they had a third-class white petty officer told this chief steward, get off of my damn deck. And they was making the same money. Then the steward was making more money, but he had no authority over anybody else. They tell you to get off of that deck, and you had to get off. They don't want you up here. We don't want you above deck. And I didn't like that. So that hurt me in my pocketbook, but I never was bitter about it. You had to say, you know, it'll get better. That's what we have to deal with.
If you chose to do something different, it sounds like you chose, well, I'm not gonna go for all of the,
You're right.
all of the rank or the external
Yeah.
indications of rank by being a cook and a steward. Now, this is a bad thing to be that, but I want to be true to what's important to me.
Right, right.
And that wasn't consistent.
Because I know I can do such and such a job. I'm able to do this. I'm qualified to do this. If you don't let me do it, you got a problem. Not me. You got the problem.
That's good. Do you have any final things you want to share or say?
No.
I know. Well, so we are here though because
Some
your
of these.
beautiful Aunt Bertha is making the last of her journey.
Yeah.
How's that feeling?
Well, like I said, after 54 years, you want to do so much, and you feel so helpless. And you see other people around you who are suffering with the same thing, and there's nothing you can do for them either. You just have to Kathy is having a really rough time of it. Veronica is more used to it because she has been in that kind of work for a long time and have seen these things, happen. But Kathy, when her mother passed, she was lying in Kathy's arms, and Kathy was holding her when her mother passed, and it just looked like a repetition of something else who was very close to her passing that way. So she's suffering a lot, but she has been just wonderful, helping with things and staying up on things. Have this steel trap memory from remembering people that she meets and instructions that she's given about different things. So she has really my strong arm. I just don't think I could have made it without her. And having to just watch it happen it's tough.
Well, we're all a bundle of sticks, so we got you.
Thank you. Well, there's always end this with one of them war stories. Again, I was down in Laredo. She said, "This is not the guy who made me drive my own car." I was at the NCO club, happy hour as usual, stayed too late, and the base housing was 6 miles away from the base. So about 2 o'clock, I said, well, I better drive this old valiant on home. And I was on my way home. I said, I'm not going to go down the main street, because if I go down the main street, the police sees me, then I'm going to be in big trouble, be in DUI and all that stuff, So I was taking the back roads, and I was on a gravel back road, trying to hurry up and get home before I fell asleep. Driving down this road about 40 miles an hour, and all of a sudden a stop sign came out of nowhere. It was on the right-hand side. So I hit the brakes, skidded all the way through the stop sign, and in my drunken stupor, I said, oh, I broke the law. I better do this right. So I put it in reverse and backed through the stop sign about 40 feet, and then started forward again and said, aha, stop, this time I got it. I drove up to the stop sign, stopped, and looked both ways. Ain't nobody within a half mile of that place at that time of morning, Drove on through it carefully and went on home, So I was telling my buddy about it the next day. He said, you did what? I said, well, I'm not a lawbreaker. Somebody could have come along and knocked your ass off. You were backing through a stop sign. You one of the guys that have to do the right thing, huh? I said, yeah.
Have to do the right thing.
You gotta do the right thing.
And that's, if I had to say a sense, and of course, we have been always in the same place, obviously, but that would be my sense of you, the guy who does the right thing. The guy who's done the right thing. So, thank you.
Okay. and you'd have to start all over again to take the test. You know, I passed the test 3 times, and I got every time they came back with an answer, they either lost the paperwork or told me I had to I was being transferred, and I would have to resubmit my application. So that was when we began to kind of look at this thing with just look at it at what it really was. You couldn't, you can't fight City Hall, so you had to look at it with a bit of humor or else you'd go crazy. So we just say, oh, what they gonna do next? So we'd end up with another duty station and another laborer's job. Finally ended up on Guam, March, something like that, in '45, and we were, most of us were sent to this freight receiving and redistribution unit. Which means you take stuff in one pile and you put it in another, put it in another pile. But again, you look at the stuff and start laughing about it, and we were also given other jobs as unloading ships, some of these refrigeration ships. Since we kind of had to eat whatever was available. And I remember for 3 months straight, we had to eat mutton from Australia. That was the only kind of protein we could get. We ate mutton from Australia. And we were unloading turkeys and hams and all this stuff and taking them to the officers' quarters. So we learned how to cope with the situation. We would steal turkeys and take them out and hang them in a palm tree and let them thaw out. And we would get steal oil from the kitchen and go out and fry turkey. And steal beer from the beer storage area. And we'd eat fried turkey and drink beer.
Wow.
Working conditions were kind of stern too, because we had every 23rd day off. You work 22 days and you get the 23rd day off, and on the 23rd day you had to go to this one place, beautiful place on Guam called Tuman Bay, and you get 2 roast beef sandwiches and 2 cans of beer. That's what you got on your one day off, your 23rd day. And that's where I stayed until the end of the war. When the war ended, I was driving a forklift. And so they gave us the rest of the day off. Things eased up a little bit. By the way, those were 12-hour shifts that we were working every 23rd day off. You had to work 12 hours every day for those 22 days.
And then tell me about when that service stint starts to come to an end.
Okay, they couldn't ship all of us back to the States at the same time because it would flood the economy with too many non-working people. So they had to dribble you back into the States so that you didn't all get back here at the same time.
Was that everybody? That wasn't just black?
No, that was everybody.
Uh-huh.
Because they couldn't send everybody back at the same time. And so I was shipped to China to wait out until the time I got my enough points to get out of the military. Loved that duty in China.
I was gonna ask you, how was that?
Oh.
Tell the truth.
You really want to know. That was during the time when everybody loved.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hi,
How
Mom.
are
How are
you?
you holding up?
Oh,
All right, there you go. Now I want to hear about China.
and China was a blast, you know. My first getting there, we were northern China, Tsingtao, and stayed there for a while, and they shipped us down to Shanghai. Where all the sailors talk about the Liberty Station in China, you know, and this house and that house, you know, and which had the best wares and all that stuff. You know. I think that was where I became a man. Just
A man's playground. Huh?
yes, indeed, yes, indeed.
Oh gosh. And how long were you there?
I was only there for about about 4 months,
Mm-hmm.
and I got enough points to get out. And by the way, that was the first and only time that I had worked at the specialty that I had finally I went to school for in Hampton Institute in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I went to work on a signal tower there, flashing lights and semaphore and all that stuff. Oh, I just had a ball. But by that time, it was time for me to get back to the States and get out of the military.
Wow.
So I was shipped back to New Orleans. That was the nearest discharge place to where I went into service from Shreveport. So went back to New Orleans, got discharged 15th February 1946. And that was, I started being a civilian then. As an adult,
Did you find it hard?
no, because I had gone into the military from that particular situation. So it wasn't too hard to get used to. I learned how to, if something wasn't to my liking, I would go somewhere else, do something else. Do not have to put up with things you don't like.
You know, one of the things that just amazes me, I've said it a couple of times about the age men, is that given the time that you were born and lived in Louisiana and the South being what it was, you all have the most affirmative, forward, positive perspective on life. You don't have what I call an oppressive attitude. Like, you know, the world is a terrible place for black people and this is just a hard. I mean, it's like you never went there in your head. It was always, this is what I want for my life and this is what I'm gonna do. Where did that come from? Where did that attitude?
Our dad, I don't know where he got it. He had some philosophies in life. Number one, if there's something you don't like and you can't put up with it, put off and leave it. In other words, don't deal with things that you don't want to put up. If you don't think you can live with it, change it. His other philosophy was work for what you want, but pay for what you get. And I still remember that to the day, 80 something years later. He says, if you want something and if you can't wait until you earn it, then you probably don't need it. And that has always worked for me too.
Mm. Well, that was certainly a sense that I got, from Daddy. Was like, you know what? If there's something that you want to accomplish and achieve, just do it,
Mm-hmm.
and don't think about all the things around you that might keep that from happening. In
You're right.
particular, I'll say he used to say, white people don't matter. They don't keep you from achieving what you want to
No.
achieve. And I just think that's a remarkable attitude in
Yes.
the oppressive South at that generation.
And as we got older, became adults and went our own separate ways, we would often go back to that area and that time, and those people were still in the same mindset. They put up with things that they complain about it, but they don't do anything about it. Don't do anything about their condition. Just,
So tell me a little bit about now you're back in civilian life and you're a single guy and so and in particular I do want to know a little bit about you and Aunt Bertha and you all's life, particularly your early life together.
yeah, okay. As I was saying, I met her in 1946. But I remember I got out of the Navy in February of '46, and this was must have been about March, April, '46, something like that. After I come to California, I ran into her in the Fillmore district in San Francisco. Had gone out with my brother Martin's wife, Katie, who was living in Richmond, California at the time, and we ended up going out. She took me out and met some of her friends and stuff like that, and I was supposed to get a new love interest and all that stuff. Not necessarily a love interest, but at least go out and paint the town whatever color we decided to paint it. But anyway, through her I met her half sister Bertha. This was in 1946, nearing the middle of the year. But we, just kind of fly by night, went our separate ways, and never really made a connection until 13 years later. So, and by that time, I think we were probably about ready for each other. We had both been into other experiences and experienced different parts of life or different times and spaces in our lives. And so well, I guess we were kind of ready for each other at that time. Got together and ended up, I remember she wrote me a letter. I was stationed in Las Vegas in '59, and she had recently gotten out of a unsuccessful marriage. And I had had an unsuccessful one that I was still dealing with. So on the day I got my divorce from this unsuccessful marriage, I called her and said, well, for the first time in 13 years, we are both completely free. We have no connections. won't take long because I'm already stationed in Las Vegas. Let's do it.
Oh my.
So she hopped her Greyhound and came to Las Vegas, and I had rented a room for us to stay in while she was down visiting me. And the people that I had gotten the room with, Bertha and I were 2 days later were getting ready to go and get married, and this lady said, "You two look just like you're going to get married." And Bertha started chuckling, and that lady must have known something was going on. But we went and got married that same afternoon. Married by the base chaplain at Nellis Air Force Base. Didn't quite happen though, because the chaplain and I were, and Bertha were there. The chaplain said, "I gotta have a witness or some witnesses to these nuptials." I say, "Well, I can run over to the NCO club and get some witnesses." So he and Bertha sat there talking, and I went to the NCO club to get a couple of witnesses, and they said, "Oh, H is getting married. Have a drink."
Uh-oh.
So about 20 minutes later, I got back. The chaplain was getting a little word, and Bertha was sitting there perspiring. I said, "Okay, I got some witnesses. Let's get this show on the road."
Oh, good.
So we got married then and there. And been together ever since.
How many years is that?
Well, now it's been 54 years.
Wow. So I know that, people have lives and lives or journeys, and, there's good times and challenging times, but my recollection of you all is that you've always seemed to be a good match for each other. What do you think?
Yeah, we had some periods of adjustment, because you can't experience it until you've been through it. Really, you can, when you're apart or you're looking at each other from a distance, you can say, "This is great, this is the best thing since sliced bread," and all that stuff. But once you really get down to the living part of being married, it's sometimes a little bit tough. We've had some good times and some bad times. Not really bad, but it was getting adjusted. Because as you grow, you do tend to grow apart a little bit, in that you gotta have a life besides this thing, because it can't be all moonbeams and roses.
So how did you all do so after marriage, then you re-upped in the military again?
I had decided then to go ahead and make a career out of the military. And so she wanted to do some work, because we had now children of our own. Well, Jerry, my stepdaughter, and her daughter, we had getting a stepdaughter is a weird thing, because I'd never really been around any young people, and all of a sudden Bertha and I gets married, and she has a beautiful 18-year-old daughter already. So now we got to get used to this thing, because She thinks the first, only thing in the world is changing the world to the way she wants it. And meanwhile, brother and I have got our old thing going. Said, how we got this going? How do we, how do we cope with this? I think stepchildren should come with a owner's manual. Really, because it's tough because the my stepdaughter wanted number one. She wants more of an allowance than I'm going to give her because she's not working or anything. But she was a real charmer, and she would say, "Hey, you know, give me a little money to hand me. Hell, it'll last me until next payday, you know." So I would say, "Now, don't you tell Bertha about this." Meanwhile, I didn't know that she was doing Bertha the same way. Said, H is a little tight-fisted with his money. Can you help me out a little bit? But meanwhile, Bertha and I had got this thing figured out. Now we know exactly, almost to the penny, what she was getting, you know. And we never would tell her that we knew what was going on. But she held it like a young lady, and
She wasn't gonna mess up her good
she
thing.
wasn't gonna mess up her good thing. And she was talented, kind of lazy. But I remember one time we were downtown Phoenix, and I saw a shirt in a department store that I thought was just great. I need a shirt like that. She said, you want that shirt? I said, yeah. She took part of her allowance, went and bought some cloth, and made this shirt without a pattern, and presented it to me a couple of days later. Say, here's that shirt you. It was an exact copy. She was so good at things like that.
So did Aunt Bertha pretty much adapt pretty well to the military life?
Oh yeah.
Once you decided you were gonna make the military a career.
Yeah, she adapted pretty well to it in that if you could call getting used to my trips to the Stag Bar at the NCO club, if she could get used to that, that's if it's called adapting, well, I guess that's what it was. But she got to be well liked by the associates that I worked with, that was in my group in the military, and so they knew her. They all liked her, and she liked them. She realized they were just regular people. So she kind of blended in with some of the military wives, not really too much, because some of the military wives were kind of snobbish, and especially they a bit rank conscious, you know, especially if they're.
Excuse me. Where is the record for the medicine?
Should be on the table there. There's a sheet of paper there where
Yeah, but it's a bunch of them. So okay, I'll look inside.
the last one on that sheet of paper.
I'm sorry, pardon me.
The last one on that sheet of paper there on that coffee table.
Okay.
So she got mixed up with some, not mixed up. I mean, she was associating with some of the wives and some of the hobby shops and the hobbies that was going on. She took ceramics, and she taught ceramics to kids during the summer, and of course I was heavily into fishing and beer drinking. But some of the places were just fabulous, you know, where you have to blend in, and all of a sudden you find out that you are one of the gang.
I just remember you with such. Of the brothers, you're the tallest, and so you have this long, lean frame. And I can remember as a little girl seeing you in your military clothing. I just remember you as being so elegant, like just the way you walked and moved, and that's what I remember so much about you. That was beautiful. What I'm gonna do here, let me pause it. So we're
It's somewhere south of Winsboro, Louisiana. I think it was. Can't think of the name of it. The little town, just a little country town, but I can't think of the name of it right now.
So then, H was his father's name.
Yes.
So your grandfather what's his name?
My grandfather's name was George, Aytch.
As far as you know, is everybody from that area? They didn't migrate from somewhere else? Are the H's always in that, as far as you know, in that northeastern part of Louisiana?
At that time, I thought we were the only H's in the world, and that was that area in south of Winsboro, Louisiana.
Does anybody have any idea where that name originates?
There's a lot of different stories. I really don't know what the origin was. I heard this story. It was never confirmed that Aytch was the name of a Dutch plantation owner in that part of Louisiana. And that's as far as I can tell about the origin of it. Only with him, I think it was Aitch, like the letter H in the dictionary, Aitch, and Aytch was probably misspelling of that.
And you know there's a whole group of AITCHs.
Yes.
Who basically kind of identify their area as in St. Louis. And St. Louis, there's a lot of them in the St. Louis area.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing. I really want to find out where that name originates. Wow. So, all right. Do you remember your great grandmother was George married?
Yes. My grandfather was married to, I don't know her name, but as far as I know, it was Aytch. I don't know what her first name was.
Okay. Goodness. So, when you were saying yesterday about Martin Luther King, who was grandmother's first child, so your mom, Della Augusta King.
Right.
And what was grandmother's birthday? Do you remember?
What was her birthday? Yes. Very easy to remember that. Her birthday was the 11th of November. It was the only birthday that the only holiday my dad ever celebrated, because it was the armistice day of World War I. It was also Mom's birthday, the 11th of November. She was born the 11th of November, 1900.
We just said his birthday, that's my memory. His birthday was, when was his birthday?
16th of
April 16th, 1889.
1889.
Oh, when they got married, she already had Martin.
Yeah,
their
she had a
kid.
child.
Uh-huh.
I think Martin was born when she was a teenager. I don't know.
And then, do you remember? So then, so Uncle Lewis was born,
Yes.
and Uncle Lewis's birthday. Do you remember when that was?
Yeah, 6th of February, 1922.
1922. And then after Uncle Lewis, was that you?
I was next.
Okay.
21st of December, 1925.
Do you remember what was Uncle Lewis like as a big brother? Do you remember much?
Well, I copied after him a lot. He was not a very protective big brother, but we got along good.
And then the brothers after that comes.
Harvey, who was born on Harvey was born on the 12th of April, 1927.
Okay. And
Then
then.
Otis, I can't recall Otis's birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know his either. I'll find that out. And then there's Daddy,
Yeah, Donald.
who is April 17th, 1930. Because he
Okay.
and I are a day apart, so there's a lot of
Mhm.
April birthdays in there. And then after Daddy is, who is that? Uncle.
That was Donald. Uh, then was Bobby Joe.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's right. So Uncle Otis came first. I'm just going
Yeah,
blank. And then
Otis.
Okay. So, what's your when you left? So tell me a little bit more about when you left the the farm, the home place. At what age and where you went, and kind of that young part of your life as a young man.
Okay, go back a little bit. I started school at 4
Really?
because the principal at Richland Parish Training School said that all these kids have to be is housebroken and be able to follow orders. And you can let them come to school early, so I started at 4. I think I started in October of 29. I think it was October 29 I started school. I was 4 years old. I was 5 that December.
And how was that? What's your memory of school?
I always had fun because I was able to read Brother Lewis's books. He was two grades ahead of me in school. So for amusement, I read his books. So I had an easy ride through school because by the time I got to the grade that he had been in 2 years before, I knew all the material.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I improved my spelling, my reading, and all that kind of stuff. In fact, they used to call me the reading machine when I was 5 years old because I read his books. And as a result of him not being protective of me, I became overly protective of my brother Harvey. Because the 3 of us who stayed with my dad was Louis, me, and Harvey.
Wow, what was that like for you when it was, your mom was gone and you were just the 3 of you all with Dad?
Well, Dad said he would not marry again as long as we were not totally independent. He made sure we were able to wash, clean, cook, help with the farming. Uh, that was from the time we were actually big enough to do anything. Because I had chores when I was 4, 5, and 6 years old. My job was to go out and round up the horses and feed them when I was that age. And Dad was a pretty strict disciplinarian. He would not ask you twice to do anything. You had to get up and go and get to round those horses up and get them fed. And if you didn't, you usually was met with some discipline that you didn't like. And I appreciated it.
Well, was
You
your
can take
dad, so while you did your chores and all, but was he really supportive and encouraging of you to school and
Oh.
learning?
Strict. You better not play hooky.
You said that he was taught people how to read, but he had never gone to school.
No, he
Where
was
did he learn all of
he
his
was
learning?
self-taught during World War One. He wrote poetry when he was in France in 1918. And he learned about caring for animals, curing animals, doctoring on animals, and stuff like that. So he was kind of known as the veterinarian for that community, and he had never even heard of finishing high school or even grammar school for
Never
that.
went to school at all.
Never went to school at all formally. He also learned many home remedies, which he was kind of the guy who took care of other people who had ailments and stuff like that. You could call him a kind of doctor. But it was mostly animals that he took care of. And he was also the kind of the guy who doctored on young men who got into trouble, with the STDs and stuff in those days. And I guess it was some pretty crude remedies they had in those days. But he used them, and I guess he was effective. I hadn't heard of anybody dying from it.
Wow, that's something. And he never actually did get married again, or did he ever get married?
Yeah, he finally got married again. He had a lot of not a lot of them, but there were a few strays who came in and out of our lives, But he never let us become dependent on them. He made sure we could do things ourselves. We could do our own cooking and stuff like that. And he said he wouldn't marry again until we were able to take care of ourselves, so that we would never have to depend on, some other lady of his to help us to survive.
That is amazing.
And he got married again in 1936.
Did he ever have any more children?
No, he had no more children. Yes, he had other children, but it was kind of hush hush. In fact, our sister Katie
Oh, that's right.
is a result of his, with another.
Well, he had a relationship with another woman, but he didn't have children from the person he married.
No.
No.
In fact, the lady never had any kids.
Oh. And did they end up spending their whole lives together? Do you know her name?
Yes, they were together until he died in 1941. in October 1941, he had a stroke. He had, we had gathered a bale of cotton, and he had taken this cotton to Delhi, to the gin. That's where you had to take the cotton for it to be processed, you know. And he had gone to town that day and took this bale of cotton, and they had ginned it and separated the seed from the fiber, and came back home. When he got back home, must have been, oh God, a little before sundown. He said he had a headache and he wanted to lie down, so he decided to lay down on the porch. And his headache got worse, and he asked me to help him get in the house and into bed. So he went into bed, and then he just kind of passed out. He didn't, well, he was groaning and stuff like that. But I remember clearly, I was 15. And we sent your little brother Harvey to get a doctor, which was about 6 miles away, I think, about 6 miles away. And he found a guy who would come and bring his car and pick up Dad and try to, you know, take him to where he could get some medical help. And the guy came and looked at Dad and said, he's too sick to be taken anywhere, so we'll bring the doctor here. So they went to find somebody to take Brother Harvey to Delhi and find the doctor. They finally decided they were taken to the hospital in Monroe, Louisiana, which was 35 miles away. And I think he passed away on the way to the hospital.
And how old was he?
Dad was 50. Well, this was in 1941, and he was born in 1889. So I think it's 51, 52, something like that.
Wow, that's young. Goodness. So once he passed away, you were 15, you say?
Yes.
And so who was with you, and what did you all do? Who was?
Well, we were still with our stepmother,
Okay.
and they somehow it just didn't really work out or something, because she decided to go her separate ways. She had inherited all the farm animals and the tools and all that stuff. And meanwhile, our Uncle Willie, who was a minister, lived in Winsboro, Louisiana. So it was decided that my brother Louis, the older brother Louis, had gone off to Southern University the year before. And Uncle Willie, who was this quote-unquote minister, decided to become a gentleman farmer, since he'd inherited all Dad's livestock and plows and stuff like that. And Mom had moved from Shreveport back to Winsboro to be with us.
Oh, okay.
So we moved next, I can't say next door, it was down the road a little ways from Uncle Willie.
And that's your dad's brothers. I didn't get who. Did your dad have siblings, and who all were his siblings?
Oh, I'm trying to think of all of his siblings. He had Uncle Louis, Uncle Willie, who was a minister, Uncle Rafe, that's R-A-F-E. I don't know what he would, never heard too much of him, because he left that area rather early because of general conditions in that area. Nobody wanted to stay there and get involved in this sharecropping stuff. But Brother Lewis had gone to Southern University, and he was entering his second year at Southern. And when we moved to Winsboro, I was going to finish. I was in the 11th grade, and I was supposed to finish up and graduate from high school there. But when I got to Winsboro, I found out that most of the material they were teaching, I already had it in Delhi. So I had the last half of that school year doing nothing except riding around with the principal in his new car. I think I was a shield for some of the things he was doing that might not have been too cool. But I graduated at 16, so I took off and went to Southern University.
Oh, I don't think I realized you were at Southern too.
Yeah.
So did you go the whole time and finish there? What was that like?
No. This is right as World War II was getting hot and heavy, and everybody who was able to walk was being drafted. So I had finished my first year at Southern University. Didn't set any academic pyrotechnics or nothing like that. But after I finished the first year, barely, I went over to Shreveport and awaited the draft because I knew I had reached 18 and I was going to be drafted. Actually, I wasn't quite 18, I was 17. But anyway, in 1944, rather than being drafted for the Army, I went in the Navy in 1944.
What is that like for a 17-year-old to just get, what was that experience like for you?
Fun, because I was first, I was on my own, I was responsible for myself, and after my first year at Southern, I got a job down in Baton Rouge, and worked all that summer there, and then later on that fall was when I moved to Shreveport. And then April of 1944, they called me for the military. And I decided to go into the Navy because I didn't want to be a soldier. I wanted to be something different. So that's what I did.
And when you say you wanted to be something different?
Well, I thought being a soldier was a fairly common experience. I wanted to do something different because in the recruiting posters they showed, didn't show any of us wearing them fancy uniforms and having a good old time. But, I imagined that's what I was going to do and what I was going to be. So I left Shreveport in 6th of April, 1944. And headed for Great Lakes Naval Training Station for boot camp. And that was, I guess that was a period period of maturation there. I was on my own. I was green as grass.
Enthusiastic.
Yo, well, yeah, the world was my oyster, and I was gonna open it. But as far as what we could do, I think I did quite well in the Navy because within 3 weeks after getting there, since I had had a little bit of ROTC training at Southern University, they had what they call the apprentice NCOs. Other words, it was a copy after real NCOs and Navy petty officers and stuff like that. And I was selected to be the junior junior chief petty officer of my company. And they gave me my little chief petty officer stripes, but they were not real stripes, but they were a signification of your rank. So I was within a month after getting there, I was marching and training the troops in my company.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember the first leave I had.
Pull this out from under his little butt. No, it's fine. Let's go. You just keep sitting on the microphone. Sit down. He can stay. You're busy.
So when I first left, I went back to Shreveport on leave, wearing my little red chief petty officer stripes, junior chief petty officer. And after my leave, went back. We continued going to this basic training, and I graduated in June of 1944, and was selected to go to a training school other than cooks and stewards, because we had been relegated to doing those chores, the menial chores. You became a cook. If you were had reasonable intelligence, you could just go straight up the ranks as long as you were a cook or a steward. That was you had to do that, but you made the same money, but you had no authority over anybody. So when I graduated out of that, I went to the Naval Training Station at Hampton Institute in Virginia to go to some of the first above deck trainees that the Navy had, because FDR had decided that there was too much intelligence being wasted in World War II by being relegated to those chores, menial tasks. So I went to Hampton Institute, which I enjoyed very much. And I was 18 and thrown onto a college campus. And, among those hungry women.
I bet you so.
Oh, yeah.
I bet there were some pretty girls there.
Oh, yes, indeed. And friendly. And I just had a great time. And I graduated from that Navy training school. Moved out to California, Camp Shoemaker in Pleasanton in the Bay Area, as a naval replacement detachment. We were supposed to replace the people who were coming back from overseas who had been in action, had seen action, some had been wounded and all that stuff. So the petty officer, the white petty officer who was in charge of us, tried to get us to switch over to Cook's and Messmer's branch, Stewart's branch, and we refused to do it. Almost got into big trouble over it, but instead of being court-martialed, they just said, okay, you're going to be a laborer for the rest of the time you're in the Navy. You'll never be anything else but a laborer. You don't follow orders. So that's what we did. We stayed there until we were called to replace some overseas replacement, overseas people who were coming back. So we ended up going to Hawaii, most of us. Of course, most blacks have heard of the Port Chicago explosion. Most of those people who got blown up in that munitions explosion were from my company, my boot company. And some of them were court-martialed for not going back to work on those unsafe conditions of loading ammo. And
I just remember you as such. Of the brothers, you're the tallest, and so you have this long, lean frame. And I can remember as a little girl seeing you in your military clothing. I just remember you as being so elegant, like just the way you walked and moved, and that's what I remember so much about you. That was beautiful. What I'm gonna do here, let me pause it. So we're